Hi, everybody. Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors and director of the Real Estate Academy of America. Continuing on with the revisions that the Georgia Association of Realtors has made to the contract package available to agents as of July 1st, 2024. Please check out all the videos in this series below and take one of our free continuing education classes on the 2024 GAR contract and the brokerage agreements, and I'll link that information below as well. Today's video is on the changes that GAR has made to the lead-based paint exhibit. Not a lot of changes, but an important change, and it might be a bit confusing at first. So let me share my screen and we will dive in. So again, this is a change to the, let me share my screen and let me put on my glasses. All right. This is GAR F316, and it is the disclosure of information on lead-based paint and or lead-based paint hazards in a purchase and sale transactions. And there's only one change, but you identify the property. This is under federal law per the EPA. This exhibit must be signed by the seller and the buyer, and the buyer must be provided with a copy of the lead-based paint brochure prior to the buyer and seller entering into a binding agreement date. This agreement must be filled out for all housing built prior to 1978. Additionally, this also includes lead-based paint hazards. If you are an agent and regardless of when the home was built, even if the home was built after 1978, if there is something in the home that is older, i.e. antique mantelpiece, reclaimed barn wood, if there is a possibility that something in the home could have been painted prior to 1978, check with your broker, but I highly suggest you also include this lead-based paint disclosure, and the buyer must get a copy of the lead-based paint pamphlet, and they must have a copy of that prior to going into a binding agreement date, and the buyer must be afforded a 10-day inspection to inspect for lead-based paint. And if there is lead-based paint, they have the option to terminate based on that. So that's just in general. The brochure is GAR CB04, Protect Your Home from Lead in Your Home. It is directly from the EPA, and it is a 20-page brochure that all buyers should have in their hands prior to buying a home that was built prior to 78, or anything in that home built prior to 1978. Additionally, as mentioned, lead-based paint evaluation, the buyer does have the right per the EPA to evaluate the property for lead in the paint, and a lead-based paint disclosure must be available to the buyer prior to going under contract. And as I mentioned, federal law requires that they get that before being obligated to a contract to buy a house prior to 1978. These forms are also available if you go to www.epa.gov. And the GAR forms is CB04, the lead-based paint pamphlet. I also highly suggest use CB13, Protect Yourself When Buying a Home. F319, disclosure information concerning lead upon transfer of residential property. And those are the informational pamphlets. Additionally, the seller's disclosure regarding knowledge of lead paint in the property. F316 is the lead-based paint exhibit for purchase and sale agreement. F918 is the lead-based paint exhibit for a lease. The seller must sign and make these available to a prospective buyer prior to entering into a contract. And as I also said a minute ago, The seller must also allow the buyer, if desired by the buyer, a 10-day risk assessment for lead-based paint. Some additional resources for you: EPA.gov, the Georgia Environmental Protection Division, the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. If you just Google those two entities and then search on those sites for lead-based paint information, you will get that information as well. Now, on to the changes that GAR made for January 7th release of the disclosures. So this disclosure has not changed. It is available by the EPA. There is a disclosure of information, warning on lead in the paint. The seller discloses their knowledge of the presence of lead-based paint or lead-based paint hazards. The buyer acknowledges if they have received copies of all available information and the pamphlet, Protect Your Family from Lead in Your Home. If they have received a 10-day opportunity or mutually agreed upon time period to conduct a risk assessment, or if they are waiving that, this is all the same. None of that has changed. The agent's acknowledgement. So what has been in this form is the first paragraph. The seller's agent has informed the seller of the seller's obligation under this law and is aware of his or her responsibility to ensure compliance. What got added for July 1st, 2024 is a place for a buyer's agent to initial. Buyer's agent has informed the seller of the seller's obligation. And you're thinking, what on earth? This doesn't make sense. There's a typo. Let's keep reading. Buyer's agent has informed the seller of the seller's obligation under this law and is aware of his or her responsibility to ensure compliance. Same verbiage. Here's the kicker. This is only required for the buyer's agent to initial this paragraph, this new paragraph, if the buyer's agent is receiving compensation directly from the seller. So this ties into the whole theme for all the changes coming out in July regarding buyer's agent compensation coming, the possibility or one option of it coming directly from the seller. And then this certification of accuracy and signatures, that is the same. The additional change, the same change, this is in the form, exact same form, but this is for lease transactions. So you rental agents, remember that a landlord and a tenant must also sign this for a property built prior to 78 or a lead-based paint hazard in a property built after 78. And again, this additional paragraph that says the tenant's agent has informed the landlord of the landlord's obligation under the law and is aware of his or her responsibility to ensure compliance. This is only required for the tenant's agent to initial if the tenant's agent is receiving compensation directly from the landlord. So I always say it's short and sweet, but believe it or not, today's video was short and sweet. So thank you so much for your time. Comment below what you think of all of these changes that the Georgia Association of Realtors is making for the contract package available 7/1/24 in Georgia. And please watch all the other videos in this series. Thank you so much for watching. Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors, satisfying your needs with service, innovation, and education. Bye. If you like that video, check out the one here. If you like the content on this entire channel, please click here to subscribe. I try to take even the most complicated of real estate situations and make them crystal clear. See what I did there? Real estate made crystal clear. Thank you guys so much for watching.